So, you don't know how to draw, and you're trying to learn, right? Have someone ever asked you these questions and you replied with the classic, I can't even draw a stick figure, how am I going to draw? Well, you were in luck because this changes today. Because I'm teaching you today how to see something and draw it afterwards from your memory from different angles. This could work for characters, objects, buildings, basically anything that is organic or not. So if that seems like something interesting to you, watch till the end. And hey, if this helps you and you would like me to try to teach you something else, let me know what you humans want to learn in the comments. And hit the like to let me know you like this kind of content. I have nothing else to say in the intro, so let's start it. Well, to explain better this idea, I'm going to break down this process into a few simple steps. I would recommend you watch the whole video first and then do the step-by-step yourself. It's simply easier to do it when you know what's the next step. Step 1. Observe. Look at what you're trying to draw. Look up some reference images. If possible, take a look at different angles of the thing. A great way of doing so if you can't find any images is looking up some 3D models online. Step 2.
Let me break it down for you, Mark.
Now that you have all the material for you to study, we are going to actually understand better this thing. And to do so, we're going to break it down into simpler shapes. The key is to keep thinking of those shapes as 3D objects. Is that a circle? No, it is a sphere. Now, if you're talking about something organic like people or animals, try understanding their anatomy. From muscle to skin to bones. Do everything in your power to deeply understand this object or animal that you're trying to do. We are going to do this because the thing is, you can look at the picture of an eye and draw it, but if you only draw eyes and in that specific angle again and again and again, if someone asks you to draw an eye sideways, you won't know what to do. Or let's say that you create an original character and you need to draw him in another angle. They might not work in that different angle. Great examples of that would be Peppa Pig or something like Sonic's mouth. There's nothing wrong with stylized art styles. They might even help your character to become more recognizable. All that I'm doing here is explaining this concept so people have that in mind before breaking the rules. Step 3. Subscribe to the channel right now. Because if you don't, you won't ever be able to be an artist. Not because of an internet curse or any superstitions like that, but because I'm going to break into your house and I'm gonna break every single bone of each of your little fingers. Step 4. Sketching time! After simplifying your object into simple shapes, it's time to get creative. Be free and take your drawing tablets or paper and pen. In the case you're doing that with paper, I would recommend you either using a pencil that you can erase later very easily or a very light blue colored pencil. That way your line art will look better afterwards. Don't worry about getting things right in the first try. Be messy enough for you not to feel pressure when drawing, but still keep things clean enough for you to know what lines to follow afterwards. Focus on getting those shapes, sizes and proportions right. That's what you're going to do right now. Step 5. Time to refine your sketch. After getting your proportions done, you can add a few more details here and there, make things a little bit more clean, and add anything that you think would fit the style that you're looking for. You're simply just taking something complicated or that looks complicated, making it simpler, and repeat that again and again until we have the finished product. Much like we have been doing for every single step so far. And the final step, what you probably wouldn't think it is, finish it.
My goodness, what an idea. Why didn't I think of that?
You already have a clean sketch. You have everything to keep going forward. Use that thing that you created as a base / skeleton and don't be afraid. Make the line art in any style that you want, add colors, shade it if you're feeling confident. An interesting part about the shading is that now that you know how this object is sort of like 3D, you can use that on your shading to make it more obvious this 3D illusion to the viewer. Even if you're using a simple style such as cell shading. I would explain how to do these things myself, but this video would get too long. I don't want to overwhelm you with information, and at the same time I wouldn't be able to explain everything well because I would need to share time between all those things. So if any of those things that I mentioned here are of your interest, let me know in the comments so I know what to teach next. But let's say that you're in an urge for learning and you can't wait for me to make a video on that. I would recommend you watching these channels right here, and I'm going to leave links to them on the description. Whatever you're looking for, one of them probably has it. With enough said, let's make a few examples so you can have a better idea on how to approach this. So let's start with something simple. Let's do a soda can because it's literally a single shape. We start by opening Google and getting a few reference images. For this example, I'm going to paste the original picture on the program itself so we can trace over the simple shape that makes the can. So we know that the main shape of the can is simply a cylinder, right? But now, if you want to make the shape a little bit more fancy, you can add those little shapes on the edges of the can that are nothing more than simply a cylinder with bases of different sizes. But keep in mind, the more details that you add to the simplified shape, it will take longer for you to sketch it. Which is fine for what we're doing here, since we're only drawing the can, but if you're doing a project that involves, let's say, hundreds of cans, it's good to have that in mind. So to better exemplify it, here's just a cylinder, no additional shapes. Okay, now we already have the simplified version of that object, and I don't want to draw it in that same angle. I want it to go a little bit towards the camera, tilted towards the camera. I don't want it front facing. So we simply make a cylinder in that position that I want, because it's much easier to draw a cylinder than drawing a can in its full detail, right? Now remember how I said that the little tilted parts of the can are simply another cylinder with a base of a different size? Well, let's use that to our advantage. So we make another base inside of the top of the cylinder, and we make a little line on the middle of the cylinder defining where the transition between one base to the other starts. And that way we made the more complicated shape that we were talking about earlier. And all of that obeying the perspective of the original cylinder that we made. And that is basically it. You now have a finished and clean sketch. Which means that now you can take it and do the line art, do the colors, do the shading, and anything else that you plan on doing with this project. Like I said before, I'm just explaining the sketching part of this process. I'm not going to explain all the steps, so let's go to the next example. Alright, let's do something a little bit more complex now. Let's make Rapunzels Tower. I decided to go with that because it's composed of a lot of shapes. Once again, let's go to Google and get a bunch of images of it. And nice, we have multiple angles of it. So okay, the main body, much like those details on the side of the can, are a bunch of cylinders that have bases of different sizes, but they're piled together. This segment here, right in the middle, it's too complicated. It has too many little parts, so let's condense all of that into a single shape. There we go, much easier to work with. But this tower also has a twist to it. It has some windows that kind of project out of the main room, so we're going to add cubes to represent those. And one of them has sort of like a slope/triangular roof to it. And he also has sort of like a mini tower attached to it that is just another cylinder with a roof just like the main tower. And boom, we have a very simplified version of our tower. Now all we have to do is add details to it to make it an actual sketch. So we add all the details we want, the windows, all of those segments that we talked before, the plants sort of covering the side of the wall. A little tip for you trying to draw exposed bricks: just make a grid around the wall that you're trying to make that and erase some of the vertical lines. That way all your bricks are gonna come out in the same size, and at the same time you're gonna follow the perspective of the wall. And there we go, we have another finished sketch that we can use to make a very good drawing out of it. So let's go to the next example. Okay, now what if I want to draw something organic? Animals or people are composed of bones that have joints that only fold in certain ways, and also fat and skin that deforms upon contact with other objects, but is still rigid enough to keep a recognizable shape. So we must keep that in mind when drawing. In this example we have 3 different poses. In order to draw them, let's simplify what we can. For example, what I normally use is the shapes of the bones and the position of the hands and feet. Have you ever seen those drawing tutorials that always teach you to make this shape here when teaching how to draw a head? We do that because it's a simplified version of a skull. So normally I use this shape to the head, I make sort of an oval to represent the rib cage of the character, and I also make this weird shape here to represent the pelvic bone. Then I put the hands and the feet where I want them to be, and make up the connections from there. But that's not a rule, you can use whatever shapes works best for you. There are people who, for example, use only boxes, that way they have a better perspective during the drawing, like I did on this example right here. Or there are other people who base their shapes out of mannequins or those little wooden dolls that people use to pose for reference, right? You can use whatever shapes work best for you and the animal or person that you're trying to make. So here's an exercise that I recommend for you to practice all of this that I said on this video right here. Try to make a page, fill them with 10 different objects using the steps that I presented here, and then try to do the same thing in another page with 10 animals or 10 people in different poses. If you do post this drawing exercise somewhere, please tag me so I know that you did it. My social media is in the description, and I would love to see that somebody is actually using this tutorial and that this is actually helping someone, you know. Well, human beings, that's basically it. If you have any questions about anything that I said here, leave them in the comments because I always read all of them and I will likely answer it. Or if you want another kind of interaction and want to meet more people trying out these tutorials right here, you can come to my Discord server on the description. I'll probably make a section there so people can discuss about drawing, learning, and helping each other on their art journey. If you want to see me making more tutorials, if you like this format, or if you have any suggestions for improvements, let me know in the comments so I can make more of that. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you're not already, that way you'll be notified when I post another one of these. Have yourself a wonderful day, humans, and I see you in the next one.